Every now and then you have a shot with rich color, but it just needs a little bit of a tweak. A different shade of green, a richer shade of blue, a brighter red. This is when Camera Raw's selective color can come to your rescue. I'm going to open this green door image, and I'll make my standard corrections. Feel free to adjust your values where you see fit. I always go to exposure, then blacks, a little clarity, go a little darker with this one. Experiment with your shadows and highlights, and I always check myself. Before, after. Subtle moves. Before, after. That vibrance made all the difference. But I want a bit of a different tone. So across the top of the Camera Raw dialog, here where you have your basic settings, I'm going to choose HSL or grayscale. HSL stands for hue, saturation, and luminance. And it can take individual colors and move them in different directions. So where I see the greens here, I could move towards a more yellow green, before, after, kind of a lime green, or to the opposite end of the spectrum, a more cyan green, before, after. I like it a little on the blue side. I could also test aquas. Some of the greens may track as aqua, and now I'm getting a real forest green shade, which is ultimately what I saw when I took this shot. But it's still a little too bright. So if I go to luminance, I can take the greens darker and the aquas darker. And there I'm getting the exact shade that I envisioned. Keeping in mind my monitor isn't perfect, but it's a huge move on the color. And when I hit done, I left the original camera JPEG in there. So here's the JPEG that was pre-processed by the camera. Here's my intended result, or the goal for the movement of this color. Let's try it with a different shade. Red is always a perfect one to be able to move the color to the exact shade of red you envision. And this is really more of an orangish family of red. I'll make my standard adjustments. And my goal being just to get the table setting to be more prominent. There we go. Now HSL, hue, saturation, and luminance. I rarely use saturation, but if you have a prominent color that is weak, you can boost the ink or the overall saturation, the richness of the color. But I start with hue, and this would class as red or orange. So I'll start with moving the reds. Now it's truly orange. Now I'm more magenta. But huge moves can happen on reds. Actually in a lot of colors, but red is one of the easiest to move. And I can go back to the orange family by sliding the oranges right. And you'll notice in the yellows, all of the background is really picked up. So if I want to remove some of the yellow cast or greenish cast from that background, I can just pull the yellows in this direction. So let's see where this is moved. When I turn preview off and on, it's simply previewing what I've done for that portion of the Camera Raw dialog. So if I go to basic, this is before and after my basic settings. If I go to HSL, before and after my HSL. So I really got more of a magenta red there. All right, I'm getting closer. Saturation I'll show you, but I rarely move this far unless it's a weak color. So you may have one that looked strong when you took the photo, but in seeing the actual result, it wasn't boosted enough or rich enough compared to the original scene. So you could see moving it very far one direction or the other, and I actually kind of liked it a little bit washed out in this scene. So it depends on the intent of the photo. I've really muted everything by pulling out the saturation of the reds. But I'm going to leave it richer because our goal is to boost the color. Not too far or it gets really artificial looking, especially here where the red is picking up a huge magenta cast. Too far. All right, now I'm going to finish this off by getting a darker shade of red. I love the movement that luminance, the overall brightness or darkness of a color, will give you. That's the red I'm looking for. And my magentas are a little too rich, so I'll pull those down just a bit. And I move a few more colors. But overall, when I hit done and come back and compare the pre-baked JPEG from the camera, the Camera Raw correction. If I zoom in, I might have created too much noise, so I could finish off some of this. And there is noise reduction that I could do. So I'm going to add a few more settings, and I'll go back to Detail. Detail will let me remove noise that I've added in my correcting, or noise that may be there because you had an ISO setting that was too high. There we go. Much smoother result by reducing the luminance, the overall dark and light, noise, but I can add back a little detail and contrast. So if I turn preview off and on, before, after, before, after. And I zoom down with Command minus, before, after. I'll hit done, come back to bridge. It will refresh the preview. I'll close the loop window. And there we have it. Before and after correction. Orange table, rich red table. Green door, rich forest green door. Get the color you want by doing selective color correction using Adobe Camera Raw.